Hello everyone and welcome to a Battle Ready Minis painting tutorial. Today I'm going to be showing you how I paint my French infantry for epic scale black powder from Warlord games. My main purpose in this video is to show you how to get plastic boots on the table as quickly and painlessly as possible. We won't be painting to display standard, but I believe you can get more than decent results quickly if you follow this method. So the first thing you need to do is to undercoat your minis. So you need to prime it with black or grey, both work fine, and then a zenithal highlight of white, which means spraying from the top down onto the models so you retain some shadows underneath. If you wanted to, you could dry brush a brighter white on top of that to make those details pop even more. I haven't done that here, and that's an optional step. The first paint we're going to use is Leviathan Blue Contrast Paint from Citadel. You can use any kind of contrast paint, speed paints that kind of roughly match. I like this kind of dark blue for the French uniforms, although I'm not sure how bang on historically accurate it is. And what we're going to do is we are going to just take a bit of that paint. You don't want too much because you don't want to flood the mini, but you don't want too little either because you want to get a decent amount of coverage with the contrast or speed paints. I'm just going to very carefully paint the jackets. So just the sleeves and the backs of the jackets that are showing, the very front sort of bib area of the French uniforms. I expect there's a proper historical term for that part of the uniform, but I'm not sure what it is. That's going to stay white. All right, so you really just need to be careful here not to get too much on the white. Obviously, you can just go back in with your white paint at the end and clean up any mistakes, but the neater you are here, the quicker overall the process is going to be, if that makes sense. Maybe a little counterintuitive, but if you spend the time now being neat, then you won't need to come back and fix it as much. So actually overall you'll spend less time. We're going to do red next. I use contrast Blood Angels red, but you can use any contrast or speed paint red would work fine. What we're going to use this for is to do the cuffs and the collars on all the soldiers, and because this strip contains one of the flank companies, the right hand side flank company, that's going to be Grenadiers. I'll explain all that in a future video because it can be a little bit confusing if you're just getting into this period, but basically what you need to know is that they have red shoulders and they have red plumes and pom-poms on their hats as well. So again, just going down the line carefully, daubing a bit of this on each of the collars and the cuffs. I'd say the hardest part of this is probably the collars because they're very small. You might find that the collars don't really show up that much on your model because of the undercoat, the base coat rather. But any ones that are visible, that have got that bit of white on them that are popping out, if you just put a tiny touch of the red on, it will just add the kind of illusion of detail there, and it will look really nice. So collars and cuffs all the way down the line, and shoulders and plumes on the Grenadiers on the side of the company as well. Okay, next we're going to do the black. I've got Corvus Black from Citadel, which is probably not the best one to use, but unfortunately it's the only black paint I have at the moment. So any black you get, the darker the better probably, to be honest, for this. Anyway, I'm going to mix this up a little bit on my wet palette, just mix it with a little bit of water, obviously because this is a base paint, a layer paint. It's not a contrast paint, so you need to mix those up whenever you use them. And what we're going to do with this is we are going to cover the shakos, so all the hats and all the boots. Next, we are going to do the flesh. I use Dark Oath Flesh from Citadel Contrast. With this, it's nice and quick. This step, you're just going to go all the way down the line, painting all the faces and all the hands. The only thing really to think about here is to try not to spill too much over onto the white bibs at the front or the white straps when you're doing the faces, and also make sure you don't miss any hands. Some of their hands are down by their sides and you need to turn the stand the other way around to see them and paint them from behind. I always seem to miss a hand when I'm batch painting like this, so just be careful, take your time, and there you go, that's the flesh done. Next, we're painting the leather areas, so you need some dark brown. I'm using a Gorgrunter fur contrast again from Citadel. So mainly what we're painting is the backpacks for this. So we use this on all of the backpacks. You could try and miss the straps if you wanted to give it a bit more detail, but again, I don't really worry about that kind of stuff, especially since the back of these models are going to be hidden from view because they are the front rank. So you kind of don't need to worry about that detail, in my opinion. The blanket rolls on top aren't going to be brown. We're going to leave those mainly white, but you might want to paint maybe one or two of them in the brown, just to give it a bit of variety and to kind of represent the idea that not all these soldiers are going to be kitted out with kind of perfect uniform on a campaign, and their equipment will be a bit of a hodgepodge of stuff they've kind of gathered together and found, right? So maybe do some of them brown, some of them grey, but the leather satchels themselves are going to be brown. Any kind of bayonet holders, scabbards, I guess they would be called, on the belts, you could paint them brown as well to represent the leather. I also decided to paint a couple of the trousers brown using this paint, just again to show that idea that they're not all in kind of standard freshly issued uniform, but they're kind of cobbled together and scavenged kind of replacement gear. Next, you're going to need an even darker brown. I'm using Wildwood contrast from Citadel, and this is for the wood. So we are going to paint the guns, right? So we're going to do the whole gun. We are going to come back in with some silver to do the barrels afterwards, but I think it's easiest if you just do the whole thing in this dark brown, and that makes the silver kind of pop better anyway when it's over a darker base layer than putting the silver over the white. Don't do the bayonets, because I think that would take a bit too long, but just straight up and down the barrel. Don't forget the kind of stocks that are underneath their arms or underneath their hands, and remember to turn the models around and get them from the back as well, because you're going to miss out some detail if you don't do that. Next, we're going to do some green. I've mixed up a kind of green to my liking with Luftwaffe camo green from Vallejo and Moot green from Citadel, which I'm not sure if exists anymore, but it's just a bright green. And I'm going to mix those together to kind of have a dark green, but not too dark. So whether you follow this step, it will depend on which part of your line you are painting. Again, I'm going to go into this in another video because it is a little bit confusing sometimes, but the pom-poms for this group are going to be green because they are the first of the Fusilier companies, right? So we have the Grenadiers on the end of the line, they are in red, and then the next company, which is going to be the first of the sort of just standard line infantry companies next to the Grenadiers, is going to be in green for their pom-poms. Next, we're going to paint some metallics, so you're going to need any kind of silver. I use Leadbelcher from Citadel, which is always kind of my go-to, but you can use any dark silvery gunmetal kind of tone. And with this, simply, we're just going to pick out the tops of the bayonets, and then we're going to go down the barrels of the muskets and pick out any metallics there. Next, I'm going to do gold. I use Retributor Armour from Citadel, but again, you can use any gold paint you happen to have lying around. And for this, we don't need to do too much with this. We're mainly going to be picking out the plates on the front of the shakos. You'll notice some of the soldiers don't have them because they have covers on their shakos, but the ones that have the exposed plates, we want to paint those in this gold colour. You could also pick out the buttons if you wanted to. I didn't do this on this unit just because I thought it would save a bit of time, and you can also paint perhaps the bottom of the bayonet scabbards as well. Next we're going to do the hair. I've got a few different colours here: Agaros, Dunes, Nasdreg yellow, Basilicanum grey and snakebite leather. What I'm going to do is just kind of have all these open and go down the line, kind of randomly painting in the hair, so we get a nice mix of different colours. And that's all the base layers done. You could call it a day there, probably, but I like to add this one final step just to get them truly kind of what I would say battle ready. So the last thing we're going to do is we're going to use our trusty old friend Agrak's Earthshade. I'm sure everyone has spilt a pot or two of these across their desk in their time. And what I'm going to do with this is just cover everything. Right, this is just a brown kind of wash. I know some people use the army to paint a strong tone, which I think is essentially the same thing, although I've never used it. You can use any sort of dark brown ink, really, you know, water it down a bit and just slap it on there. What this is going to do is it's going to create some nice kind of grimy kind of shade, right? So we've already got the light and the dark from using the contrast paints over the white base coat, but this is going to kind of dull everything down a little bit, because the downside of using contrast over white is that it can be a little bit too bright, a little bit chalky almost, and this is just going to kind of dull it down, grime it up, like I said, and I think it really ties things together nicely. So now that wash has dried, here we have the finished unit, or the finished stand, I suppose, because two of these would be one base. I think this looks pretty good, really, for the time. I think it took me about 40 or 45 minutes total to do this one. Now, you could leave it as is. You could stick it to the base like this, put a bit of static grass on there and call it done. I'm going to add a few little highlights now, just to make it pop out a little bit more. I think I do like the gritty, grimy look that the wash gives it, but I think just a few little pops of colour will really make a big difference and make it look a lot sort of better than it really is in terms of the painting quality. So that's what we're going to do next. So first I'm doing the red. I've got some Evil Sun Scarlet from Citadel, but really, you know, I'm just using that because that's just what I happen to have lying around. So you can really use any sort of, you know, lighter red color that you happen to have. You know, if you're just buying in, you know, you don't need to find all these specific colors. It's really about just finding something that is going to be a brighter than your base red, and all you're going to do is just pick out a few little raised areas. Again, being as neat as you can. Don't worry if you spill some over, because you could just go back and fix it. Yeah, all I'm going to do now is just go down the line and pick out any of these little red bits on the cuffs. Probably I might not do the collars, because they will be a little bit tricky. I feel like I'll probably get red on the faces if I do that, and they're going to be in shadow anyway because they're underneath the guy's chins, right? So just doing the cuffs should be fine. So next I'm going to do the blue jackets. I've got Macragge blue, which is Citadel, and Amarth blue from Scale Colour, and I've sort of done a little mix of these, and again just picking out some raised areas to create some nice highlights and leaving the sort of darker shadowed areas. So this is just to make the blue pop a little bit more. Again, I'm not sure how historically accurate the colour is. It's just using what I have, really. I've got the Macragge blue from my days of painting Space Marines. I've got my the Amarth blue I think I got when I was painting up some American Civil War stuff a couple of years ago. So again, you don't need to buy anything specifically. Once you've been painting for a while, you kind of build up various different shades and colors, and you just kind of use what you have, right? That is my my mentality anyway. Imagine people who are a lot more invested in close historical accuracy probably have a completely different way of doing things. So, you know, let me know which side of the fence you fall on. Finally, I use Screaming Skull from Citadel, which is a off-white, to just pick out the straps on the shoulders and some of the trousers. Unfortunately, all my footage of this was very blurry, so I won't bother showing it to you here. And there we go. I think that's about it. So once these are based up on the stand with the other line, they're going to look really good. And again, it's about minimal time spent, but with the kind of best possible results, really. You know, you've got to paint stands and stands of these to get a whole army going. And I personally don't want to be spending, you know, hundreds of hours on that. The point of doing this is to get troops on the board and have fun playing the game, for me anyway. I hope you found that useful and enjoyed watching that process. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I hope to see you in future videos. Goodbye.